Hey everybody, good morning. Today I want to talk about the house your moon is in your Western astrology chart, not East, Western. So if you have a copy of your chart, you can go ahead and follow along with me. I am not talking about the sign it's in today because I do feel like the house is really important. In astrology, like I always say, the sign is the energy, but the house is where that energy is taking place. And, you know, we all have our moon in a different house and, of course, a different sign. In the East, they focus more on the moon. Over here in the West, everybody's always like, what's your sun signs? You know, that's the most important thing. Personally, because I do this for a living, I do pay attention to the sun, but to me, what's more important is the rising sign and the moon sign, because those are very, you know, particular to that person. The sun sign is obviously everybody that's born in the same month, right? And so there's so much to astrology, and I basically start with the rising sign. This is when I'm doing a chart. I find the ruler of the ruler of the rule of the ruler, any aspects, and then I go through every single house, every single planet, and do the same thing. So it's like a big fun puzzle. And then, of course, using intuition to jot things down and take notes. But I do want to talk about this today because the moon is super important. It's our emotional nature and our emotions, you know, along with the way we think. Mercury is really kind of like creates the personality and the psychology of the person. So the sun being the ego, the moon being the emotions, most of us are so driven by our emotions, you know, by people. Sometimes ego too, but it's all intertwined. So what I'm going to do is break down the moon in the 12 houses for you guys today. And we're going to start with the moon in the first house. These people are going, everything on the first house, the ascendant, kind of colors the way we look. So it doesn't matter if you're a Capricorn rising, if you have the moon in the first house, this is going to give a softness to the face, kind of like the moon. These people are totally changeable, completely moody. You know, the moon changes signs every couple days, and you guys could probably kind of feel this, you know, because it just does. The moon just doesn't stay in one place too long. And this is kind of how these people are. Like, their moods are up, down, up, down. They're also very, they can change the way they look a lot. You know, they might change their hair color. They might just change the whole look because, again, it's in the first house, and the moon is changeable. They have a strong relationship with their mother and females and women in general. So this is the moon in the first house. The moon in the second house. These people with the second house is what we value. So, you know, along with just an emotional, they value security. If you can imagine, the moon rules the sign Cancer. So, but there's that little Taurus energy there going on because the second house. So the security is their main thing. I like this placement for people because a lot of times I feel as though those with the moon in the second house are really able to kind of like, because the Taurus, it's the natural ruler of the second, work towards, there's Edgar, he has a cold right now, work towards their goals and stick with it. Taurus is a fixed sign. So they do have that capability if you guys want to, and I'll do another video on manifesting using astrology later on, but I won't get in too much to that right now. Anyways, moon in the third house. These people are going to be very, you know, one of the things with these people that's neat is they are super creative. And I mean like creative writers, because the third house, you know, its ruling planet is Mercury, and that's communication. So these are you know, the people that can make up creative stories and maybe even make a living at it, but they're creative. There's also going to be a connection with their siblings, a strong, or at least one, and they're very protective of their siblings, which is always a nice thing, you know, especially if they're older and they have a younger one or whatever. They're very protective people. So this is all really nice. And this is the moon in the third house. The moon in the fourth house, like I always say when I look at a chart, I look at circumstances around the beginning and end of life in the fourth house. So the fourth, the eighth, and the ascendant, that's what I do. So with this particular placement, there is going to be a strong connection to home and to family. And they're going to find that this is going to be one of the most important things in their life. You know, some people, you know, they're more connected to their career. Some people are more, there's just a million different things that we can kind of be connected to, but home and family is going to be very important to these people. And you might see that they actually spend a lot of time at home or work from home because their emotions are tied into the home, and they have a very hard time letting things go. I'm not talking about grudges. I'm talking about like physically letting like things go, like old things, clothes, you know what I mean? I'm not saying they're hoarders, but they could teeter on that a little bit if they don't watch it. There's always free will in astrology. I'm just here to help people navigate their way through life. Moon in the 5th house. Again, this is a great creative place. Like I said, the 5th house rules your first child. So, you know, these people are very emotional, very creative. Kids are going to be important to them. A lot of times they make really great teachers, you know, working with kids, you know, because they have that creativity too anyways. And their kids obviously are going to be a major thing. A lot of times if somebody has the moon in the 5th house, their firstborn kid is a girl, is a female, because the moon rules women, but not always, you know, it's just, I'd have to look at the whole chart, but they're just very creative, and they're fun loving, and they're typically really, really good working with younger people and helping younger people out. So the moon in the 6th house, again, the 6th house rules our daily routines, whatever, our physical health, not our mental health. That's the 12th house. So these people are going to be, you know, there can be an emotional connection to health and wellness, stuff like that. I would warn these ones to watch mood swings too, and getting out of balance too with their, and this is for anybody, but particularly with the moon in the 6th house, with their diet, with stuff like that also. The moon rules the stomach. So a lot of times when I see squares or oppositions to anything with the stomach area, I mean, the moon, you know, there's or a transit sometimes will be happening. There can be issues with the stomach area because, you know, that's where our immune systems are. That's our emotions, you know, all that stuff. It's all related. So the 6th house, you know, rules the health and the wellness. And a lot of times I do see these people working in that field, and they're usually very good at it. They can be in the medical field, you know, doctors, nurses, whatever, nutritionists, stuff like that. So if I see that in the chart, a lot of times, depending on final dispositors and everything else that I do when I do a chart, I will see a strong connection and strength in that area. Moon in the 7th house. This is all about relationships. I think Jeffrey Dahmer had his moon in the 7th house. I was looking at serial killers astrology charts. Like, I'm a researcher. I'm not positive. I think he did, but that was a whole different kind of, let's not get into that because that's an extreme weirdness. But anyway, emotional, obviously connected to relationships. Remember, moon, stomach, Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay, but obviously you guys that have the moon in the 7th house, I'm not saying you're like Jeffrey Dahmer, but you know, the relationships, the one-on-one, the romantic relationships are so important. And your moods can really be based on what's going on with that. And that's true with everybody to a certain degree, but some of us are more like career people, and we're more like, okay, like my mood's based on, you know, how I'm doing career-wise, not necessarily my interpersonal love relationship or something, you know. But again, it's changeable. It's changeable because everything with the moon is changeable. So if you are somebody with the moon in the 7th house, you could attract to a very moon type person, which is a very moody, up and down. And I don't mean that to be bad, but a very emotional person. And you might even like it subconsciously, you know what I mean? Because you're the one with the moon in the 7th house, but we attract our chart to us too. So it's one thing with the moon in the 7th. The moon in the 8th, it's, you know, these are intense people because the 8th house rules the sign Scorpio. So these are people with great transformative powers, and they also transform others because of the moon there. It's similar, like having the moon in Scorpio, which is a little bit of a difficult placement. As you guys that study astrology know, it's considered in its fall. But, you know, the willpower is there. And once they make up their mind to do something, people with the moon in the 8th house will get it done. The tenacity is strong. Sometimes you guys just have a hard time making up your mind, but once you do, you're going to get it done, no doubt. Moon in the 9th house, there's going to be a connection with foreign lands and your emotions. You could be somebody that really likes to travel overseas, maybe see different cultures, and feels an emotional connection with that. This is also another placement of good teachers because the 9th house does rule education as well. So these people are open-minded enough to see all different differences and cultures and stuff like that, and, you know, really kind of help everybody out with that. But there is travel with this, whether you do it for a living or you just do it for fun. I'd have to look at the whole chart, but this is the moon in the 9th house. Moon in the 10th house. So I always say, if you find a lot of planets up there in the 10th, a lot of times these are politicians, these are actors, these are anybody that's out and about in the limelight or whatever, because the 10th house rules our career. So with the moon in the 10th house, women, again, are going to be very, very important in your career. It could be females helping you. You could have a career with female. A lot of times I see this placement with people that work in the beauty industry, and also with Venus there too. I see the same thing. But women are an important part of this. And you can evoke emotions on a large scale, because up there, you know, everything up at the top of the chart is for the world to see. Everything below, you know, is internal. So if you got a lot of planets up there, especially the moon, the world is seeing who you are, and you have the potential and the opportunity to create strong emotions in people. Moon in the 11th house, again, we're talking about these, a lot of times their friendships are so important to them, their relationships. And again, you know, it's very, Mars is men, Mars and the sun is men, and the moon and Venus is female. So there's going to be a strong connection with female friends. I don't care if you're a guy or you're a girl, there's going to be a strong connection. And again, the closeness that you can build with these people is really kind of neat, because you know, sometimes you have people in your life, they come, they go, whatever. It's just is life. And but with the 11th house, it's got that Aquarius, let me connect and help you kind of a vibe. So they can get along with a wide variety of different people, but their emotions are very like based on their friendship. So let's say like they have a hard time with a friend, or they have to cut, well, I don't know if they will cut somebody off, but if, you know, that they're in that place, it's going to be very hard for them to do that, unlike somebody else. And you know, they might struggle with that a little bit, but it is a good placement for helping others. And as always, the 11th house is all altruistic endeavors. So the moon there is also nice, great social workers, people like that. Moon in the 12th house. So I always look at the 12th house again, because even before we were born, our parents were going through their own stuff. So the 12th house is very generational, and you look at ancestors, and it's kind of like, they say it's a karmic house because it's stuff passed down. Maybe not our past lives, whether you do or don't believe in past lives. Most astrologers do, but not everybody does. But it's your ancestors, you know, that were here, and the habits or the whatever, and it becomes you and your chart. So anything in the 12th house is kind of hidden from us. So a lot of times when I see moon in the 12th house, your mom was having trouble either, you know, when she was pregnant with you, before, whatever, and your subconscious, this is just the beauty of all this stuff, picks up on that, and hence you are born with a moon in the 12th house. One thing I want to say about these people is they do tend to hide their emotions. Same thing with Venus in the 12th house. They do hide their emotions, and that's not always a bad thing, but sometimes you got to be open with people. And because not everybody's a mind reader, you know what I mean? They don't always know what you're feeling. And so this is one of the really strong things with these moon in the 12th house people. As with anything in the 12th house, it is the house of self-undoing, but it's also the house of hidden talents. So again, we're seeing probably more creative type people. I don't know in which capacity, could be writers. The dreams are going to be strong because it is the house of psychic ability and medium ability. So the intuition is going to be strong. It's up to, you know, whether or not these people want to delve into those waters, but it is there for you to delve into if you want to. So this is the moon through all the houses. Thanks so much, you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.